Hey everybody, this is Dream, and this is going to be the Fanduel breakdown for Major League Baseball. We have a 6-game slate for 9/7/2022. It's a pretty good slate. I like quite a few decent players. I think there's some good pitching that we can choose from at the top tier. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that. So my pitching, my favorite pitcher today is going to be Yu Darvish, and the reasoning is that he tends to go through at least 6 to 7 innings, which is going to be a nice advantage on DraftKings. As you can see, he's had a lot of really good games. In fact, he has had no sub 30 fantasy point game on FanDuel since June 1st. That's a while. So that's really awesome. That was against, that was against St. Louis where he had 20 points, and he had one other game before that against Atlanta, 14, and then it was a while. It's in April before he had even another one. So to me, he is just overall the top option. He gets the most strikeouts of the pitchers available. He's got a pretty good matchup against Arizona. It's not great, but it's not bad. He's been good against them on FanDuel. Even if he gives up a couple of runs, he's going to get the strikeouts. I think it's going to help. He's just a guy that plays really well for the FanDuel, for what FanDuel wants out of a pitcher. The other guys, Alex Manoah, he's somebody to consider. He has 40-point upside, but he also is kind of like 15-point downside. He's had two really bad games against Baltimore recently, so that's something you have to consider. Then the other guy is Christian Javier for Houston. The big issue with him is that he doesn't really average enough innings per game. He's more than 1.5 innings per game lower than Darvish, so that's something you have to really take into consideration. Obviously, Jordan Montgomery is very boom or bust on FanDuel. He can sometimes get strikeouts, but he's not consistent. But he has been better with the St. Louis Cardinals, except for the fact that the strikeouts haven't been there as much. So, again, he's kind of hit or miss. You can see he has big game potential, but then he also has a lot of middle of the road ones. So he's somebody you can consider. But if you can afford to get Yu Darvish in there, he's definitely going to be my top option based on his history. Another guy that's kind of sneaky is Dan Creamer against Toronto. Now, obviously, the matchup is terrible for him. He's had one game against Toronto lately where he scored 43 points, but you can see he's actually pretty good at getting over 20 points. But it's still a very risky matchup, and I don't really like it that much. I just wanted to mention him because he has some upside, more upside than just about anybody else that's available. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the first baseman, and I'm going to switch this to show the last 10 games because I definitely like looking at that direction. So obviously the overall top option is Mr. Goldschmidt. He's been hitting the ball pretty well lately. He's got a lot of big games. He's kind of a boom or bust in this matchup, but he has been hitting the ball pretty well. Another guy I really like is Vladimir Guerrero, and he's obviously a lot cheaper. Now, I think he's one of my home run picks, and of course everybody says that the rules are you can only have one home run pick. But I'm gonna be like Dave Portnoy in pizza, and I'm gonna have more than one slice. So Vladimir Jr. is gonna be one of my home run picks today. So you can mark that down. The next guy that I like, and I'm not gonna give you the other two home run picks yet because I got three. Is gonna be Josh Bell for San Diego. I really like San Diego in this matchup. He's a pretty decent price too, and he's been hitting the ball pretty well. Even if he doesn't hit a home run, he can still get you 6 to 8 to 9 fantasy points. And right at his price point, we definitely need 9 or 10, but he definitely has the potential to do that. Um, Kirk for Toronto, and also, or sorry, just Kirk for Toronto, and then Jansen too. I'm not gonna say you Jansen, but if he, depending on who starts, either one of them is viable in the situation. And I think Jansen's also pretty inexpensive. Yeah, same price almost for the two of them. And then for Adley Rutschman, now he's not in the best matchup, but he's still in a decent matchup for himself. And I think he's just been hitting the ball super well, so I had to include him simply because if anybody on Baltimore is going to get to Manoah, it's going to be him. Then Trey Mancini, he's kind of a boom or bust option today. I'm just waiting for him to have that game where you're just like, holy crap, I wish I used him. He has that potential. It's just it's gonna be mixed in with all these other small games where he just gets a hit or two. Then the two catchers for Kansas City, Melendez and Perez, are guys I really like here. Uh, they're at a plus matchup, and they've both been hitting the ball pretty well lately. So I like both those guys in this particular matchup. So that's where I have at first base of the catchers. Now, a lot of people don't really use catchers too much, but I do think that a couple of these guys are definitely worth taking a look at today at the first base catcher position. You can always put one of them utility if you really want to. At second base, I have Jose Altuve as the top option for Houston. I mean, he's just absolutely murdering the ball lately. So what else can you like about that, you know? Cronenworth for San Diego is actually a good salary saver, $2,700. He's been a little bit boomer bust lately, but he's still getting 6, 7 point games, 9 point games, so he's pretty safe from that perspective. Brendan Donovan, he's a little bit more risky, but he's a little bit cheaper as well. He's been hitting the ball pretty decently, having a lot of 9 point games, and we definitely like that. India for Cincinnati, he's a guy that I think has some potential today. He's been playing really well lately, getting a lot of hits and stuff, and getting on base and getting RBIs. And Cincinnati is going to have a plus matchup against Chicago, so it's definitely a potential guy. And then one of my favorite, like, super cheap guys is Michael Massey. Now, he hadn't played in a ton of games this season, but he has been hitting the ball pretty well lately. And with his cheap price, you can definitely afford to pay up for somebody else with him. At third base, I have Nolan Arenado and Manny Machado. Those two guys go without saying. They're also very expensive at the top here. You know, $4,400 and $4,500. I don't usually like to pay up that much for guys at this position, but you might decide to if you're just desperately trying to find a home run guy. Alex Bregman is also somebody that you could consider. He hasn't been hitting the ball quite as well lately, but he still has that big boom potential, and he's a little bit cheaper than those first two. And then Matt Chapman, he's one of my favorite options on Fanduel today because he just has some good hitting games where he can score points, and Toronto's in a good matchup. And then also Mr. Kim from the San Diego Padres. I think he's been playing pretty well. He's kind of, you know, limited though, but he still has boomer bust potential in a game like this, and so I like him as a, you know, kind of a sneaky boom option. So to go to my second home run hitter of the day, my second of 3 home run picks, you know, only one pick, everybody knows that rule, right? Is Bo Bichette. He is absolutely just murdering the ball lately. His batting average is through the roof. I think he's batting close to 430 the last 10 games. Just absolutely insane. He's overall my favorite player on the board, and he's actually not that expensive at $3,600. I think there's a lot of ways you can fit him in there. But of course, if you don't want to fit him in, you could always look at Jeremy Pena, who's been kind of hit or miss lately, but he has some potential. He's kind of due for a home run. Obviously, I have Kim again, and then Brendan Donovan, again, who I mentioned before at shortstop. But overall, Bo Bichette is definitely one of my favorite options available. And then to get in outfielders, so my third and top home run hitter is going to be Toscar Hernandez. I just have a feeling about this guy today. Yesterday, I had a feeling about Ian Happ, and he went for it. I even like Ian Happ pretty good today, too. But I think Toscar is going to be a guy that potentially just blast a home run. And if you like Toronto today, then they got a lot of good options with Springer and him being another option that you could put in here. So if you want to try to get that Toronto stack, I think Toscar is a guy that you're going to want to mix in with that. Obviously, I just mentioned Ian Happ. He's also been just killing the ball lately for Chicago. And when he hits well, I really like him. And when he puts in my projections well, I always like to call him out because I think he's a really top. He's not quite at the level that he was yesterday, but he's still in a really good matchup. Then I got Tyler O'Neill for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's just in a nice little plus matchup, and he's not too expensive today. He's been hitting the ball really well as of late. And he's had some really big games, too. So he's somebody that you have to consider. Also, Kyle Tucker for Houston, another guy that's just in a really nice matchup, and he's been hitting the ball, you know, pretty good lately. Juan Soto and Yordan Alvarez are also two guys that I think are not ideal because of their price, but they have been hitting the ball good enough that they could pay off if they can get the home run. But they're a little bit pricey for what their production has been lately. For some savings options, I have Jerkson Profar. He's averaging 10 fantasy points a game last 10. He's had some really good games, had some games with home runs and stuff like that. And so I think he's somebody that you could potentially utilize in this position. Jake Fraley for Cincinnati. He is cheap enough that he has some boomer bust potential as a good option. And then also Franmil Reyes and Saya Suzuki from the Chicago Cubs. Both of these guys have been hitting good as of late, which is what you like to see on fantasy. You want to see guys that are having some consistency and getting the bat on the ball and getting some runs scored and stuff like that. And they both have some home run potential too. So overall, that's a pretty good slate, I think. I was a little surprised that the slate is as balanced as it is from top to bottom, from position to position, but it's actually pretty balanced for a small slate like 6 games. So if you do have any guys that you think that I missed out on, feel free to let me know. Oh, sorry about that. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to let me know. Let me call out the Patreons real quick. I appreciate everybody, the 2 people so far that have joined that. I really do appreciate it. Gerald P. and Patrick B. Just a reminder, in the description below, we have a link to Patreon and a link to Discord. Anybody can join Discord. You don't have to join Patreon to do that. And we get, we have a place where we can talk about, what the games are going and stuff like that. So this is kind of what the Discord looks like right now. Also, if you actually have any suggestions on what player I should put on the front of the next day's videos and stuff, feel free to leave that below, and I will, consider the player that you choose. Make sure that for whichever video you want player on, they have to be playing that day. So anyway, that's what I have for this video. Thanks again for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Have a nice day, guys.